Right, it's time for the final three battles in the campaign. Those who haven't joined before, this is the Broken Wall Islands campaign, which is available as a free download on the Armada Fanatics website files section. The campaign is set in the Broken Wall Islands, where the Orcs have established a harbour from which they're raiding into the Infant Sea, and the Abyssals in this instance are trying to capture the islands to eject the Orcs. The forces involved in the battle: the Orcs and Goblins defending the island with an Orc fleet, a Goblin Army and an Ogre warband, and the force of the Abyss attacking using a captured Basilian fleet and an Abyssal Army and warband. This is Volume 3 of the campaign, the final battles, 7 to 9. Volume 1 covered battles 1 to 3 and Volume 2 battles 4 to 6. Situation: the Abyssals won Armada Battle 1, which gave them an advantage in Battle 3, and the Goblins with their Ogre warband won Vanguard Battle 2, which also gave an advantage Battle 3 to them. The Abyssals won Kings of War Battle 3, secured the key crossroads, giving an advantage in Battles 4 and 6. The Orcs Goblins won Armada Battle 4, gaining more magical energy, which gave them an advantage Battle 6 and 7. The Abyssals won Vanguard Battle 5, giving an advantage in Battle 6, and Kings of War Battle 6 was a draw with no benefit to either side in Battle 9. The Abyssals now are advancing south on the island towards the harbour and sending spies to gain information about the Goblins' defences in the harbour itself. And at sea, the Abyssal fleet is trying to get past the Orc fleet's blockade to get into position to offer naval fire support to the land assault onto the harbour. Battle 7 is Armada, sees the advantage, which is using the plant the flag scenario. The situation: after overrunning the final Goblin Army blocking positions, the Abyssal Army has arrived within striking distance of the enemy harbour. Overnight, the Abyssal fleet slipped past the Orc fleet in the dark and is moving into position to provide naval gunfire support to the land assault on the harbour. However, the Orc fleet has received news of a Basilian fleet's move and is moving into position to engage the fleet. Having won Battle 4, the Orcs have 2 additional rabble squadrons in their fleet. Scenario is used plant the flag from the Armada rulebook. Victory points are scored by having vessels close to the objectives at the north of the map at the end of the battle. But in the end phase of each turn, ships that fail a skill test are blown by the wind. Dream paces in this scenario represent the positions from which the fleets may provide gunfire support in the upcoming battle. The more victory points gained in this battle, the more fire support will be available to the land forces. And in this scenario, we ignored the additional victory points for being within 6 inches of the harbour at the north of the game. For each victory point gained by a fleet during this battle, the associated army will receive a round of naval gunfire support during one of its turns in the final battle, Battle 9. A round of naval gunfire support allows the army to fire at a single enemy unit that is visible to any of its own units, and it will have the following statistics: range 5+, 10 attacks, blast D3, piercing 2, ignores cover, so it could be quite effective. Forces involved: 250 points. The Abyssals with their captured Basilian fleet, 2 cursed Abysses, both with boarding nets, Ogre mercenaries, sturdy construction veteran crew, 2 cursed Elohai with boarding nets, and a cursed sloop squadron. And the Orcs: a Ripper Hulk with Morax, sturdy construction, grappling hooks and veteran crew, 2 Hammer Fists with Morax, grappling hooks, veteran crew, 2 Blood Runners with veteran crews, and the 2 Rabble squadrons, which is the bonus for winning Battle 3. Issues: there's a high likelihood of wind playing a part in the battle, and in hindsight perhaps the crews should have taken the Ocarina of Korgan or a lucky crew for a reroll. There's value in battleships over support ships. They score more victory points. The Orc Admiral just wanted to take the biggest ship he could find, not necessarily concentrating on the scenario, just wanted the biggest ship. There's the board set up with the fleets in place, and you can see the objectives at the north there, the harbour itself, and 2 sandbars representing islands. Here's a position at the end of turn 1. Some ships advancing towards the harbour, others turning to face the foe. Not much happened beyond the movement in that turn. Moving on to turn 2. In this scenario, the wind cannot change direction until turn 4 at the earliest. In the north, the ships continue towards the harbour, but some ships in the south decide to engage each other. Orc captain of a hammer fist takes on a cursed Elohai, caused damage, but he failed the skill test to grapple and board. Cursed Abbess opened fire on a blood runner and sank it with one lucky broadside, and that's what 3 critical hits can clearly do for you. Obviously the Abyssals have annoyed the dice gods. This scenario then faces dangerous. Every ship must take a skill test. If it fails, the ship is pushed 4 inches downwind unless it's anchored or grappled. In the south, the Orc hammer fist is blown into collision with a cursed Elohai, while the blood runner is blown clear off the board. The situation at the end of turn 2, and the 2 Orc squadrons, who of course didn't take upgraded crew, were blown backwards and were really regretting not recruiting a veteran crew. Moving on to turn 3, Cursed Abyss has some success in shooting against an Orc hammer fist. The Orc hulk is less impressive with its meagre forward guns. Other ships exchange shots. Orc hammer fist damages a cursed Elohai and then again fails the skill test to grapple the ship. The Elohai then activates and causes damage to the hammer fist. And the situation at the end of turn 3, highlighting ships that are about to be blown downwind. And yes, the squadrons, the Orc squadrons are going backwards again. And after downwind moves, and the Abbess at the north was blown backwards but just managed to avoid the rocks at the north. Turn 4, wind could change but doesn't. In the north, an Orc hammer fist manages to get a bow rake on a cursed Abbess and sets it on fire after a critical hit. In its activation, the Abbess fails its skill test to extinguish the flames, takes more damage, but at least it doesn't roll a 1 and explode. The Abbess then closes the hammer fist, gives it a broadside at point blank range before passing its skill test to grapple, and a heavily damaged hammer fist is forced to surrender. The Orc revenge is swift, as the Ripper Hulk first passes its skill test to fire into a grapple, and then grapples the cursed Abbess itself. Morax swarm board to damage Abbess and inflict carnage on the Abyssal crew, but are not able to get the ship to surrender in this turn. And Elohai fails its attempt to shoot into the grappled ships. But the Abbess is more successful and lets rip the broadside. It's only moderately successful as damage shared between all the 3 ships in a grapple, including the Abbess, which is now beginning to leak like a sieve. In the south, the badly damaged Elohai has to take a nerve test on activation. It fails and surrenders. And here's a position at the end of turn 4. Ships are being blown downwind again, including those 2 Orc squadrons. For them it's a case of 7 inches forward and 4 inches back. Situation of turn 4 and all downwind movement. Turn 5, a blood runner attempts an underwhelming stern rake on the Abbess. And in its activation, the Abbess passes its skill test and fires into the grapple, the main outcome of which is that the other Abbess is now completely dead in the water. In its activation, the Ripper Hulk breaks clear from the dead Abbess and fires a passing broadside into the Elohai. And the situation at the end of turn 5, and the squadrons were blown backwards yet again. Turn 6, wind direction remained the same. There's a lot of manoeuvring but little combat, as the fleets were both thinking about the scenario at this stage and getting close to the objectives at the north of the battle map to secure the victory points. In the end phase, the Orc Ripper Hulk was dragged onto the rocks and took 5 D10 damage, which was really quite devastating. Fortunately, it has massive structure points and nerve and managed to survive. And at the end of turn 6, the Orcs have a Ripper Hulk, a Hammer Fist and a Blood Runner in striking distance of the objectives. The Abyssals have a Cursed Abbess, a Cursed Elohai and a Squadron in striking distance. Turn 7, wind direction remained the same. Ill-judged but eminently Orky move. The captain of the Blood Runner rammed and boarded the Cursed Abbess, but learnt the error as the crew of the Abbess forced his ship to surrender. No better target, Ripper Hulk blasted the Abyssal Squadron out of the water. And Hammer Fist put a little damage onto the Cursed Abbess, but not enough to worry it. The situation at the end of turn 7, and you'll see some ships have anchored there in order to ensure they're not blown by the wind away from the objectives. 2 Orc squadrons were, yes, dragged backwards yet again. Turn 8, wind direction remained the same. Cursed Abbess broke from its grapple with a surrendered Bloodrunner, which set it up for a broadside from Ripper Hulk, but that was not enough to damage it. An Orc squadron concludes its unhappy battle by being sunk by the anchored Elohai. In the end phase, the surviving Orc squadron is again blown backwards. Cursed Abbess is also blown backwards, but collides with the surrendered ships and remains in the scoring zone. And the situation at the end of the game, both fleets have 2 main battleships in the scoring zone, which gives them 4 victory points each. And so each fleet will have 4 rounds of naval gunfire support in the final battle. So some thoughts on the battle. The squadrons were particularly useless. Obviously there's a great benefit in having veteran crew in this to help you pass the skill test at the end of a phase to avoid being run backwards. The Abyssal fleet was probably better balanced with 2 large ships compared to the Orcs with 1 extra large. And interestingly, towards the end of the battle, admirals were forced to concentrate on the scenario rather than simply killing each other. And it was quite interesting that playing the battle as part of the campaign redefines success in that battle. In a standalone game, the Orcs might well have pressed harder for a win in turns 7 and 8. Had this gone wrong, there could have been a serious impact on Battle 9, which will decide the outcome of the campaign. Both sides were happy-ish with the result, which gave them both 4 rounds of naval gunfire support for the final battle. On to Battle 8, Vanguard, Rescue the Spy. A situation under cover of darkness, the Abyssals have landed a succubus lurker to scout out the enemy positions in the harbour. But unfortunately, the spy has been captured and been tortured to a state of delirium. A warband has been tasked to infiltrate the enemy lines and recover the spy, but the rescue will not go unopposed as an ogre warband has been tasked to guard the spy. Battle was played at 200 points per side. Scenario uses 3 of the Princess from the Vanguard rulebook, substituting the succubus lurker for the Princess. The Abyssals are the attackers and the ogres are defenders, with the aim being to control the spy at the end of the battle. If the Abyssals win the battle, the spy's information used to good effect in Battle 9. The Abyssal Army automatically gains 1 extra victory point. If the ogres win the battle, however, they keep secrets to defence plans in Battle 9, and the Goblin Army automatically will gain 1 extra victory point. Forces, the Abyssals. Attacker with 200 points, 2 Abyssal Guards, 2 Flame Bearers, a lower Abyssal with a spear, Helquin Blood Mask with Lucky Charm Healing Herbs, a Seductress with Heavy Weapon Lucky Charm, Gargoyle with Potion of Haste and Weaker Dagger, and a Hellbound. And the Ogres, 2 Cleavers, a Hunter, 2 Berserker Braves, 2 Crocodogs, a Boomer Sergeant, and an Ogre Sergeant. That's the battlefield. And here's the deployment and plans, and you can see that the ogres who are defending are going to move forward and block the centre approach, and then use some of their forces to outflank on the left there, and leaving at least 1 model in close proximity to the spy for close protection. Abyssals are going to do nothing subtle at all. They're coming straight up the middle and they're going to charge. Turn 1, KG moving for both sides. The Abyssals had to move some models into charge range because of the need to rescue the spy within 5 turns. So after turn 2, Flame Bears move forward and target the Hunter and catch the 8 train in style, knock the Hunter to the ground, but he passes his nerve test. One of the Berserker Braves charges for Hellhound and kills it. Helquin and Imps combo charge a Cleaver. Helquin hits 4 times and wins 4 times. The Ogre is knocked down and fails its nerve test. Retaliation, the Ogre Sergeant Berserker Brave charge for Helquin. Sergeant inflicts 2 wounds but takes 2 in retaliation. Brave hits twice and inflicts a 3rd wound but knocks the Helquin down, but it passes his nerve test. Desperate attempt to save a ground Helquin, the Seductress charges the Ogre Captain. It was the Captain's turn to board the 8 train on his armour saves and only 1 wound got through. The Gargoyle then charges the Brave and manages to get 1 wound through. Boomer Sergeant charged the Flame Bearer and tore it limb from limb. Cleaver, being tasked with closely guarding the spy, could not resist joining the action, charged the Gargoyle, killing it in a single round of combat. The Abyssal Warriors and Lower Abyssals were too far away to attempt to rescue the Hellquinn, so charged a nearby Berserker Brave. This will give them both a scalp and also get them closer to the action. First warrior knocks the ogre to its ground, but it passes its nerve test. But the second warrior goes to town on the recumbent beast, and this time there's no respite and it dies. Situation into turn 2. Not shown in the previous pictures, the hunters stood up and the crocodiles have taken over close guarding responsibilities. Ogres have the initiative at the start of turn 3 and waste no time in kicking the grounded Hellquinn to death. Seductress then kills the ogre captain. Hunter and Cleaver charge the Seductress and kill her. This warrior's combo charge for Cleaver. First warrior inflicts 1 wound, second warrior finds the 8 train waiting for station, inflicts a massive 7 wounds to kill the Cleaver. Berserker Brave charges into the imps and knocks them down. Despite being stubborn, the imps fail their nerve test and are killed. And the surviving Flame Bearer moves out of sight of the Boomer Sergeant and flames the injured hunter, killing it. Boomer Sergeant charges the Lower Abyssal and kills that. At the end of turn 3, both warbands are heavily depleted, but the ogres appear to be on top. As turn 4 starts, the Abyssal decide their best hope is to kill the Berserker Brave with warriors and then turn to deal with the other ogres. Warriors combo charge in. The first warrior inflicts 2 wounds, is then wounded twice and grounded in retaliation, fortunately passing its nerve test. The second warrior then inflicts 3 hits, all of which are saved on 7s and 8s. For an insult to injury, a Boomer Sergeant charges a standing Abyssal Warrior, inflicts a wound, but the Abyssal Warrior then retaliates, hits 3 times, all of which are saved. Clearly the dice gods are not on his side. 6 hits that time, the enemy needed 7 or 8 to save, and all were saved. The Boomer Sergeant Berserker Brave tied up in combat the Abyssal Warriors, the surviving Flame Bearer took the opportunity to sneak forward and flame a Crocodog, killing it. And the situation at the end of turn 4. Turn 5 started with Berserker Brave stamping on the downed warrior that against the odds survived. Warrior then stood up and had a swing at the ogre, hitting twice, but both again were saved on 7s and 8s. Boomer Sergeant charged Abyssal Warrior and knocks it down, but it passes its nerve test. Flame Bearer moves forward to touching distance of Succubus Lurker and flames the remaining Crocodog. The dog is killed and the Flame Bearer moves off with a spy. We realised after we played this incorrectly, as the Flame Bearer would have had to use a short action to cut the spy free, and hadn't actually done that. However, this did not have any impact on battle outcome. So situation on turn 5, if the battle ends now, it is victory for the Abyssals, but there will be a turn 6. Running away, the Flame Bearer had forgotten the Boomer Sergeant could break away from the fallen Abyssal Warrior and charge. Flame Bearer is killed and the ogre takes possession of the spy. There's still a small hope for Abyssals. If one warrior can knock down a Berserker Brave, the other one could run into contact with Boomer Sergeant and fatigue a round of combat. Downed warrior stands up and inflicts 2 wounds, which does knock the Brave down, but it passes its nerve test. And the warrior then does run and fatigues a round of combat against the Boomer Sergeant, but the 8 trains left the station and no hits are caused. And the situation at the end of turn 6, the spy remains in the hands of the ogres. So it's victory for the ogres, and for the goblins will get the advantage in game 9, where they will automatically gain 1 extra victory point. And thoughts on that? Keeping the eye on the scenario board is very important. With only 5 turns potentially in that game, the Abyssals really had to move forward and get into close proximity to the spy as quickly as possible, which again meant they could be charged by the defending ogres. And were huge swings in that battle with exploding 8s on both sides, and some very lucky ogres who survived round after round of combat needing a 7 or 8 on the armour save. I think 8 consecutive 7 or 8s. And so we get to the final battle, which will determine the outcome of the campaign. Destroy the Harbour. Kings of War battle. Now there's good news and bad news. Good news, it's time for the final battle. Bad news is we ran out of time to play this in the scenario. As a result, we decided we want to have closure on the campaign, and we decided to resolve the campaign by tossing a coin. Just joking, of course we played the battle. The Abyssal Army has arrived within striking distance of the enemy harbour. If it can sufficiently damage the harbour infrastructure, then the Orc and Goblin menace will be removed. However, Goblins have not been idle, and the outcome of previous battles will determine how much preparation has been possible. If the Abyssal Army has been delayed long enough, then all movable stores and port infrastructure will have been carried into the eastern part of the harbour, where it can be more easily defended. If, however, the Abyssal Army's advance has been swift, much valuable infrastructure will remain in the western part of the harbour, and a more active defence may be required to protect it. So looking at previous battle outcome, the impact on this battle. Battle 6 outcome was a draw, so there was no benefit to either side in Battle 9. Battle 7 outcome. Each fleet scored 4 victory points, and each army will therefore have 4 rounds of naval gunfire support in the final battle. And Battle 8 outcome. The Ogres won the battle, keeping the spy from being rescued, so they've kept secret the defence plans, and the Goblin Army will automatically gain 1 extra victory point from this battle. Scenario used for this battle is control from the Kings of War rulebook with some special rules. All squares on the board are worth 1 victory point to the side that controls them at the end of the game, with the exception of the 2 squares on the southern edge of the board, which are worth 2 victory points to either side. And as we've said, both armies have 4 rounds of naval gunfire support, and the Goblin Army starts with 1 victory point already. Forces, 2,300 points. Lower Abyssal Horde with Mead of Madness, Succubi Lava Horde, Gargoyle Troop, 2 hordes of Molochs, a regiment of Abyssal Horsemen, Cronius, Abyssal Fiend, Abyssal Warlock, with amongst other spells Veil of Shadows, the Manifestation of Baal, and 2 Butcher regiments allied in. And the issues very worried by the potential impact of a naval gunfire support, so taking the Night Stalker allies with stealthy, Veil of Shadows, Baal himself is stealthy, and with quite a lot of regeneration in the army there. And also taking 2 hordes of infantry to counter the Goblins' high unit strength. And there's a picture of the army. The Goblins at 2,300 points, 2 hordes of rabble, 2 hordes of trolls, 2 regiments of Luggit gangs, 2 big rock throwers, a giant, king with Jarvis pendant, 2 whizzes, 1 mounted, and Gorp's explodomatic bang sticks. Issues: keep the flea bags in cover as much as they can. They've both got Boots of Striding or the Potion of Caterpillar, so they can deal with cover, and try to combo charge in order to one-shot regenerating units with Fury to avoid the counter-charge. And there is the Goblin Army. And it's nice to see the giant back out on the table. That is Stumpy Foxbane, a well-known giant. Now, after the Dice Gods had shown clear support for Goblins in Battle 6 and later, the Abyssals took the opportunity to make a sacrifice to their deities on the eve of battle in order to try to placate the Dice Gods and get them on their side. There's a picture of a battlefield showing the harbour and the control areas with the 2 victory points each for the 2 squares on the right of the battle map. Another view of the harbour. Plan: the Goblins fire support from their rock lobbers over on the right there, behind the impassable terrain of the sea. They're going to advance and then try and block and hold their table section there. They want to advance on the left and defeat the enemy and then swing into the town, into the flank. And there's a regiment of Luggit gang hiding at the back there to protect the rock lobbers. And the Abyssals concentrating on the 2 sections valued at 2 victory points. They want to destroy the rock lobbers and get behind the enemy and advance to defeat or delay the enemy. Turn 1, the Abyssals win the turn 1 and advance, and the Warlock casts Veil of Shadows. Vale abandons his plan to charge the rock lobbers, and his lightning bolt inflicts 2 wounds on one lubber and wavers it. And naval gunfire support inflicts 3 wounds on the trolls. Goblins advance. On the left, the bang sticks move to get into better positions. The trolls regenerate 1 wound. Rock lobber and king's shooting put 3 wounds onto Bale. Lightning bolts put 3 wounds onto the succubi lava. 10 rounds of naval gunfire support and no hits. And the situation at the end of turn 1 as the forces move to face each other. The Abyssals advance again on the left and angle to receive charges from the bang sticks. The fiend puts 2 fireball wounds onto the giant. And on the right, Bale charges the wounded trolls. Rabble is combo charged by succubi, larvae, Chronius and the butchers. Cloak of Death inflicts some wounds. Warlock fails to cast Veil of Shadows this turn. It could be painful in the next round of Goblin naval shooting. Bale only inflicts a further 4 wounds onto the trolls and begins to regret his life choices. Combo charge gets a rabble up to 15 wounds and wavers the horde. In the Goblin turn, the trolls countercharge Bale and regenerate 3 wounds, and they are then Bane chanted. Other units move away from Chronius to avoid the Cloak of Death. On the Goblin left, the rabble make a hindered charge into the butchers. The giant charges the lower abyssals, the luggets move forward, and the bang sticks continue to manoeuvre for better positions. Shooting phase, all shooting from the lobbers misses. Naval gunfire support inflicts a meagre 3 wounds onto the Molochs. Trolls fighting Bale are Bane chanted. As we said, the naval gunfire support a bit underwhelming, with 10 attacks hitting on 5s and then blast D3 to only inflict 3 wounds is not impressive. That will put 2 wounds onto the butchers and waver them on an 11. It's a shame they have fury. The giant inflicts 4 wounds on the lower abyssals. Trolls put Bale up to 11 wounds and then rout him. What a bad use of that flying monster. Completely pointless to charge a quite tough horde in the front like that. Bad use of Bale. And the situation at the end of turn 2. Turn 3 on the left. Luggets benefit from covering the woods and only take 1 wound from a fiend's fireball. Lower abyssals countercharge a giant and regenerate 2 wounds before inflicting a further 2 on the giant. And the abyssal horsemen join the butchers in melee with the rabble and rout them. We had to run this combat twice, as initially the horsemen fought the horde with sharp sticks with phalanx and hadn't caused enough wounds, then realised they were a rabble, and we had to fight it again, and then they defeated the rabble. And the situation after combat. On the right, all 3 units charge again into the rabble. Warlock does get off Veil of Shadows. Naval gunfire support inflicts 9 hits on the wounded trolls and proceeds to roll 4 1s. 5 wounds, however, do get through, and the trolls are wavered. The rabble are destroyed, and the succubi follow up forward to butchers. On the Goblin right, the wavered trolls pass their headstrong roll using Jarrus Pendant and regenerate 3 wounds, and both trolls charge into the succubi, including one in the flank. Luggets charge the butcher. In the shooting phase, both rock lobbers miss. Naval gunfire support against Moloch inflicts 2 wounds, and Veil of Shadows clearly had an impact there, but again 2 wounds, pretty disappointing. Luggets facing the butchers are Bane chanted. Butchers and the succubi larvae are both killed. On the left, the bang sticks charge the butchers and kill them. The other bang sticks charge the abyssal horsemen and kill them. Good results, but both regiments have used their more pups and inflicted several wounds on themselves in the process. The Luggets and the giant charge for lower abyssals inflict 12 wounds, but the horde passes its nerve test on a 3. And the situation at the end of turn 3. Turn 4 on the right. 1 Moloch horde charges the trolls. Chronius and the other Molochs charge the other trolls, regenerating some wounds, and both hordes of trolls are killed. unit reforms, concerned about the goblin threat from the right. That should read from the left. That's the goblins coming into the town. On the left, the Abyssal Fiend charges one badly damaged Bangstick regiment. The regiment is routed and the Fiend reforms. Lower Abyssal charge the Luggets and regenerate a mighty 5 wounds, but only managed to inflict 3 wounds onto the enemy. No naval gunfire support this turn. In hindsight, the Gargoyles could have flown forward, have line of sight onto the other Bangstick regiment, which might have been a good target for it. The Goblins' turn on the right. The Luggets charge the Molochs. In the shooting phase, Bane Chant on the Luggets is failed. Rock Lobbers put 5 wounds onto Acronius, and Lightning Bolt adds another. Naval gunfire support hits twice on the unengaged Molochs and causes 4 wounds. In melee, the Luggets only manage 6 wounds on the Moloch and waver them, but of course the Molochs have Fury. On the left, the Goblins clear out the Fiend and the lower Abyssals and turn to face the main action. Situation at the end of turn 4. Goblins had expected to kill the Molochs and contest that table section. Now, having only wavered them with Fury, they're likely to die. Both armies take stock. The Goblins have 2 table sections valued at 1. Abyssals have table sections valued at 2. Goblins have a few scoring units left alive and are not well placed. So, moving into turn 5. Goblins have good line of sight into the port. If they kill the Molochs and overrun, they could challenge for one of the 2 victory point sections, particularly as they will be going last. On the right, the Warlock casts Veil of Shadows. The Molochs and Cronius rout the Luggets and reform to claim the table sections. On the left, the Gargoyles fly into position to block a charge into the port. The Gargoyles can now see the badly wounded Bangsticks, call in naval gunfire support that causes 9 wounds and routs the unit. And the situation at the end of Abyssal turn 5, it's not looking good for the Goblins, so they only have 2 scoring units left, but they still have 2 Rock Lobbers and several individuals that might affect the battle outcome. Giant moves sideways to allow the Luggets to charge the Gargoyles. Heroes get into position to shoot and lightning bolt the Molochs. In the shooting phase, the Flagget is finally able to use Hex on the Warlock. Both Lobbers and the bowshots fail to wound the Molochs. The 4 lightning bolts hit them and cause 3 wounds. A nerve roll of 11 wavers them, and Fury of course cannot help as they're not in combat. In melee, the Luggets kill the Gargoyles. Situation at the end of turn 5. Turn 6. Cronius moves through the wavered Molochs and inflicts wounds from Cloak of Death. Wavered Molochs fail to regenerate any wounds, while the others regenerate 3. Despite being hexed, the Warlock casts Veil of Shadows, taking 4 wounds in the process. In what could be the final turn of the game, it's time for desperate measures from the Goblins. In a Hail Mary charge, a Bangstick King and the King on foot charge into wavered Molochs. The Luggets charge into the Cronius. In the shooting phase, 1 Rock Lobber and 3 lightning bolts hit the Warlock and inflict a further wounds. With a nerve roll of 5, the Warlock is routed. In melee, the Luggets get the Cronius up to 13 wounds and rout it. And the Luggets move sideways to claim a table section. It all comes down to the final melee. If the King can rout the Molochs, already on 6 wounds, the Goblins will win. If the Molochs survive, the Abyssals will win. And with typical Goblin ineptitude, the Kings only inflict 2 wounds. Molochs easily pass their nerve test. The battle ends with Abyssals controlling 2 sections with 2 victory points each, with 4 victory points total. Goblins control 2 sections worth 1 victory point each and have a bonus victory point, making 3 total. So it's victory for the Abyssals. Thoughts on that game? Naval gunfire support was really underwhelming, only really of value in Abyssal turn 5 when it inflicted 9 wounds and destroyed a unit. And the Goblins suffered surprisingly from a shortage of unit strength and a poor plan. So the campaign outcome. Having secured the harbour, the Abyssals win the final battle by 4 victory points to 3 victory points and win the campaign. Well done to the Abyssals. Thoughts on the campaign? It's fun playing that. In the heat of battle, it's easy to forget some rules when moving swiftly between game systems, and I'm sure we made some mistakes while playing those games. It was interesting to see the impact on individual battles, knowing that the battle outcome would affect future games. Games where with a degree of success rather than straightforward win-loss were particularly interesting and forced players to really think about their actions. For example, in Armada Battle 7, which determined the naval gunfire support available in the final battle. Had that not been the case, both sides would probably have fought harder for the win. And some thoughts on the current campaign. The way the battles impacted each other is shown here, and you can see that, for instance, you couldn't fight Battle 3 until Battle 1 and 2 were concluded, as they impacted on Battle 3. And the same with Battle 9, needed Battles 6, 7 and 8 to be completed. And I think if I was going to design a campaign again, it would be more like this, where the battles in round 1 impacted on the battles in round 2, and so that you could play the Armada, Kings of War and Vanguard battles in each round simultaneously. So perhaps a 3-person team could team up, one running Armada, one Kings of War, Vanguard, and you could then play over 3 games each, the whole campaign in a day. And that might be a better way of doing it. Anyway, that's the end of the campaign. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.